Good morning everyone, my name is Stefan Granke and I'm coming to you from Life Academy, and today what we are going to be doing is we are going to be building our PVC bow, much like this one. Okay, so we're going to be going through all the steps and all the points in how to make your own PVC bow at home using our online tutorial. So what you're going to need to start your PVC bow is a few things, but most importantly it is going to be a piece of PVC pipe. And this is conduit pipe 25mm that you can buy at your local hardware. We're going to be using this piece of pipe, and I've had them pre-cut to about 1m30, 1m40, just so that it fits in the car nicely and it's not too much of a hassle. They come in very long lengths, normally 2 or 4 meters, so I just had them cut quickly. Second thing we're going to need is a tape measure and a pencil or Koki to make some markings, because we've got quite a few dimensions we need to get onto this bow. Now, a bow has got a handle or a grip, which is normally in the center, and it's got an upper limb and a lower limb with string knocks on the end where the string goes into, or string grooves. Okay, we are going to take those measurements. Now, the best measurements we've used to make our successful bows is normally in the imperial system, which is in inches. But we're going to be using centimeters of the metric system today, so we're going to be using centimeters. Now, our full bow needs to be 1m22 centimeters. Okay, so half of that is going to be 61 centimeters, and the reason why I'm mentioning half is because that's going to be the middle of our bow. So we're going to be taking our 5-meter tape measure, and we're going to be pulling it out and sticking it on the end and running it all the way to our pipe. And then on tape measures, there's normally a little button that goes in and it fixes the tape measure so it doesn't slide in and out. Okay, so our piece of pipe here is 1m32. We need to make sure that it's 48 inches, which is 1m22. So we got 1m20 over here, 1m22, and we're going to make a mark on number 122. Okay. When we're making our marks, we make sure that we are always directly on top of our ruler and on top of where we're making the mark. Otherwise, you get something that's called the error of parallax, and you end up being off by quite a few mils. So when we are dealing a project like this, it's not that important, but when we're dealing with our woodwork and stuff like that, we make sure that our eyes are always directly on top of where we're making the mark. So we made a mark at 1m22, and now we need to make a mark at halfway, which is going to be 61 centimeters. So eyes are always on top of where we're going to make the mark, and we do 61. Okay, now for our grip, it's going to be 4 inches, which should be around 10 centimeters. So we're going to go 5 centimeters up and 5 centimeters down. So from 61, we're going to go 5 centimeters up, which is going to be 66. So you're going to make a mark on 66 centimeters. And then 5 centimeters down is going to be 56. Boom. So we make a mark on 56 and 66. That's our 10 centimeter handle, which we'll notice our hand fits quite nicely. Now, for the string grooves, we're going to make a little lip on each side of about 5 centimeters as well. So we're going to make a mark on number 5. And we're going to make a mark on number 117, which gives us 5 to 122. Okay, and that is our marks for our bow. So we're going to now release the button, tape measure goes back, and we're going to pack it away with our pencil. We no longer need those. What you're going to need now is a hacksaw, and they're pretty cheap to buy at your shops, at your local hardware. And they are nice and versatile, which means you can use them for all sorts of different projects, for cutting light metals, plastics, little pieces of wood. The hacksaw works really well. It has got a lot of little teeth, so you can't do big cuts. Okay, so we're going to be using a hacksaw, and the reason why we are using a hacksaw is to cut off our extra piece of pipe. So where we measured the 122, we're going to take our hacksaw and we're going to give it a quick cut. Now when you're cutting with a hacksaw, you must make sure that the blade is always kept nice and straight and not at an angle. If it's at an angle, your cut's going to go skew. And if you start off straight and you start going at an angle, it's going to start getting stuck. Okay, so it is important that your blade is straight. And when we're using a hacksaw, we are going to be using forward and backward motions, okay? And we are not going to be pushing down. The teeth that are on the blade are going to end up cutting the pipe for us. Okay, so we're going to hold our piece of pipe, use our finger as a guideline, and forward and back like that, nice and light, and start making a hole. Cool, we're halfway there. Normally it would be a good idea to put your piece of pipe into a grip or a vise and cut, but we've done this quite a few times. So, nice and easy. Finish the job pretty quickly. The hacksaw goes through it nice and quickly. We're going to put the hacksaw aside, we no longer need that. Now we've got a piece of offcut, which we're going to keep on the side as well. Okay, this is going to be used to make our arrow grip when we're at a later stage. So we're going to keep this on the side. Now, what you're going to need, we've got our bow or our piece of pipe ready to be made into a bow. We're going to put this down. And in order to make a successful bow, your limbs have to taper, and they have to taper evenly. And what tapering means is that it starts off thick and it goes all the way thin. Okay, so that's what tapering means. And it has to taper evenly. If it doesn't taper evenly, what happens is where it's going down, if it goes down too much and then goes thick again, it's a weak point and it's going to snap when we're pulling our bow. So in order to make sure that our bow tapers evenly, we have made this device. And it's a simple device to make. It is just a few pieces of wood, 2 little hinges and 2 bolts. Okay, and what we've done is we've taken our piece of wood, we've put in hinges into both the bottom piece and the top piece so that our wood opens up. Okay, and then what we've done is we've put little bolts at 25mm deep, which is about 1 inch. And what that measures up to is the thickness of our pipe. So we've got our bolts and our hinges, and our machine works up and down. Now, that is half of the next step. The other half is we need a heat gun. So we've got our heat gun over here, and this heat gun is not a very big one, but it goes up to about 600 degrees. And how it works is there's a little copper coil in here that gets hot, and there's a fan at the back that blows the hot air out, and it sounds a bit like a hairdryer. Now, you must never touch this piece of metal after you've used the heat gun, because it gets very, very, very hot and you're going to burn yourself. Okay, so we use our switches. There's a little mark at the top, so if we switch it up, it goes on hot, and if we switch it down, it goes on half. So the setting for down is 450 degrees. The setting for up is 600 degrees Celsius. Okay, so we're going to use our heat gun, and what we're going to do with our heat gun is we are going to heat up the piece of pipe from the top mark of our handle all the way to the end of our pipe, and we're going to heat it. And as it gets hot, you'll notice it's going to go soft, but we're going to do that now. Once it is soft, we're going to stick it into our machine in the center, and we're going to squish it, and it is going, and our little machine is going to taper the piece of PVC pipe so that it is nice and even and it doesn't break when we've got it, when it cools down and we string it. We're going to do the same thing to both sides. So let's get going. So we are going to plug in our power. We always leave our power off at the wall so that if we have the machine switched on or is on by mistake, we don't plug it in and then all of a sudden have the machine running. So it's always switched off at the wall, and make sure that your machines are always switched off, but accidents do happen. So we always switch it off at the wall. Our machine is ready to go. It is off. We switch our power on and our heat gun is working. Okay, sounds a bit like a hairdryer. It gets nice and warm. The longer it stays on, the hotter the air is going to get. So, I'm going to quickly clean our table. How are we going to do it? Start at the base and move our way up. All the way till the halfway point, not further. We don't want our handle to get warm. We want it from the top mark of the handle all the way to the end of the limb. Okay, and the best way I find is to start off at the limb and get that nice and warm and soft, and then move up and just keep going up like that until such time you get to the highest point. So we're going to start. I'm not going to talk too much now. Can you see how it's going nice and soft? You can bend it. That's how we want it. All the way up until here. And we constantly turn our pipe so that the whole pipe gets nice and warm. Nice and bouncy. And notice how I never forget about the end. Although it is soft, if we forget about it, it cools down and it goes hard again. So we always keep going back to the end to make sure that it stays nice and soft. We rub our machine through to see if it's nice and smooth. It is. We're good to go. Wiggle it around. Make sure your marks are always facing up. So the pencil marks that you've made, make sure that they're facing up. Stick it in here. Now this pipe is very hot. Okay, and we squeeze. Boom. Put some pressure on it. That is one side done. So we're going to be doing the other side as soon as this is cold. We are going to then flip it and we are going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Okay, so now that we've given it some time to cool down, we're going to undo the cap. And there's our taper. Beautiful and nice and skewed, actually. Okay, so plastic has a memory and we'll be using its memory just now to make it nice and straight. As you can see, it is going a little bit skew. So what we'll have to do is heat it up again and pull it in straight. So let's do that quickly. See that we're here. Okay. So we fix the problem. It is still hot, so we must make sure that it comes nice and straight. Okay, boom, better, nice and straight. Okay, and we still have the beautiful taper where it goes nice and thick at the handle and thin to the edge. Cool, we're going to do the other side. Okay, you ready? Okay, now we need to make sure that this is flat and both the limbs are flat with each other. To hold it nice and straight, more so than actually clamping anything, just so that it's nice and even. Cool, looking good. I'm gonna let that cool. So now that we've let it cool, let's open it up and see what we have got. Donk. Perfect, nice and straight, as you can see. And it also lines up quite nicely. Okay, so we're going to move on to the string grooves now. We're going to get rid of this, we don't need this, and we're going to bring in something else. This is a welding glove. So it is a heat resistant to some degree. It is heat resistant to some degree, and it is a welding glove. And then we need a pair of pliers as well. These are just normal pliers. Okay, so now what we're going to do is put our welding glove on. Those marks, the 5 centimeters from each end, we've still got our mark. We're going to heat up that end, and you're going to see the plastic is going to swell back to its original size, which is nice and round. And we're going to do the same to both sides. So we're going to just heat up the end, and this is to make our rope grooves, okay, or our string grooves. Okay, and you can see it's coming back to its original size, which is that 25mm piece of PVC pipe. Okay, we're back to its original size. Now, with the glove, we're going to fold it in half. Quickly grab it with my hand. Okay, and we're going to pinch it. Okay, this is not working very nicely. Okay, and then with the pliers, we're going to hold it. And I'm going to walk around and I'm going to show the camera closely. But that is what we want to get. Okay? So that is going to be our rope groove, or our string groove for the bow. Make sure that it's nice and angled. And then we're going to let it cool down. Once this is cool, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, feel that? Not bad. Okay, and repeat. Okay, when you're doing the other one, make sure it's going in the same direction. Okay, so this one's up, so this one we need to fold and pinch. And make sure it's going up as well. Okay, so that they're both going in the same direction. Otherwise your bow is not going to work very well. Okay, and we're going to just, wait until it cools. Okay, good. Awesome. And there's our bow. That is the basics of our bow. So now we can pack this stuff away as well. Heat gun we're done with for now. Okay, make sure we switch it off to power. Wow. Now to make the grooves in our bow, we're going to be using a file. Okay, and this is a metal file, so it's got very small serrations in it, and it goes through the plastic quite nicely. We're going to hold it, and we're going to make a groove going directly down. Okay, so you don't go parallel with the cut of our pipe. We're going down. Okay. So that is our groove for the rope. Now, that is how deep we're going to go, but we're going to smoothen it on the edges as well by going like that. Okay, so that it's nice and smooth for our string to go through. Cool. When I'm done the other side, I'm going to bring it close to the camera so you can check it out. Okay, let me bring this around. Okay, so you can check it out. This is what we need on both sides. That is where our rope is going to go. Cool. Once we've done this, we're going to sand our bow and get it ready for the paint. So, when we are sanding our bow, we are going to use sandpaper, and it is a 400 grit, okay? There are a few different types of sandpaper. The lower the number, the rougher the sandpaper. So 400 is quite a fine sandpaper. Okay, and we're going to basically rub the sandpaper all the way up and down our arms, and it's just to make the plastic a little bit rough and also to get rid of any dirt that might have melted into the plastic while we were heating it up. Okay, the sanding of the bow will make the paint stick very nicely. We found that bows that haven't been sanded, the paint peels off pretty quickly. Okay, so we're sanding all the parts of our bow, the ends, and we're going to swap it around and do it the other side as well. Okay, get it in all the little nooks and crannies. Okay, boom. Sandpaper's wet. But our piece of pipe is nice and sanded. Whee! Cool. Okay, so now that our pipe is sanded and ready to go, move this other piece out. We're going to use some masking tape. And masking tape is a very commonly used tape in building because it is easy to use and it comes off very easily. So we use masking tape, and we're going to masking tape from the top mark or bottom mark, depending on which way your bow is going. And we're going to wrap masking tape around our bow handle. And it's going to go all the way down, whoopsie. It's going to go all the way down to our bottom mark. Spiraling down until we get to the bottom mark, making sure that there is no gaps in our tape, because if there's a gap, the paint is going to leak onto our piece of pipe. Now, it's not a problem if it leaks on. I do this tape just to add a bit of a handle to hold the project while we're painting it, and it just makes it nice. And then afterwards we put our leather around it. Okay. Now, with the rest of the tape, you can make patterns onto your limbs. So I like closing this off so that this stays white, so we don't get the string rub marks as we're shooting. But you can do whatever you like. So I'm going to run my tape up this little notch around the edges. And then I'm going to wrap it around as well. It goes around the back. Okay. I'm going to do the same on both sides. Find the end. Okay. Now, depending on how perfect you want it, let's make sure it lines up nicely and leaves your piece of PVC at the same place, so that you get nice even angles. Okay, put that around, this around, to the back. Cool. So that is the outline of it, and now I need to tape the whole thing so that when I'm spraying it, none of the top gets paint. Okay, I'm using my knife. Okay, it's a very sharp knife, and I'm using it to just cut off the edges here of the tape. No, that didn't cut. Yeah. Stick these pieces on. Okay, and this is what we're going to get. So you can see the tape angles off at the back, and it goes up the tip like that. And now we're going to tape so that you can't see any of this plastic. We're going to just cover it all with tape. We're going to do the same to the other side. Okay, so I've chosen to do a green spray paint. Its end result is absolutely beautiful. This is a gloss finish, which means it's going to be shiny like the lid. You get a matte finish, which is nice and like it's not shiny, so it doesn't reflect that light like this gloss does. This spray paint is the best, okay, but it is also fairly expensive. You must just make sure that your spray paint will stick to plastic, and it will say it on the can. So this spray paint sticks to wood, metal and plastic. Okay, and it is a paint and a primer. Now the way the primer works is the primer is normally what gets stuck to your material or your bow, and then the paint is what goes on top of the primer. So if you don't have a paint that can stick to plastic, make sure you get a plastic primer first, and then you can paint it with another paint on top. So, pop open the lid. Now when we're spray painting, we want to keep the spray away from the bow. So as far away as possible without wasting too much. But if we go too close, the paint is going to drip. So we start off by getting a little spray on our table or outside, just into the air to get rid of the hard paint that's formed around the nozzle. And we're going to start spraying. Okay, short little bursts, and you can see it goes on nice and lightly. Okay, don't worry about getting it onto your grip. Just make sure you get a nice smooth coat, a light smooth coat of paint onto your piece of plastic. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to let this dry a little bit while we're doing the other side. Now spray paint is normally an alcohol based paint, which means it dries pretty quickly because alcohol evaporates fast. Before we paint this side, I'm just going to make sure that there's no bubbles in my tape, because otherwise the paint is going to creep underneath. Okay, and we do the same. Nice light coat. Okay. Try and not get it on your hand, but it's okay if it does. Okay. Oh, missed a spot over here. Cool. So there's my first coat of paint. Now that we've done the one side, we can go back and we can make sure that the other side is also nice and thick. So we do another coat on top of it. Okay, in my workshop, I don't really care about making a mess, but at your home, I would suggest spraying it outside on the grass, because you can see that my table is getting a bit of a green hue as the paint that's missing my bow lands somewhere. So make sure that you're painting somewhere that is not too important if it gets dirty. Okay, so I would recommend doing it outside, on the grass, so that at least if you miss, it doesn't destroy your mom's kitchen table. Okay, cool. That is our bow. Now this is going to go outside and dry in the sun for about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, we are going to work on our arrow rest. Okay, and that is using our offcut of plastic. Okay, the best way to cut it is with a pair of scissors, but you would have a hacksaw available at home because we've had to use it to cut the pipe nice and short. So we're going to go back to using a hacksaw, and we're going to cut down the center of our piece of pipe. Okay, this is quite difficult, so I get your parents to come and help you, as someone needs to hold it while you're cutting. You don't want to cut your fingers off, so I would suggest either clamping it into a vice grip or having someone else help you do the cutting, an adult. Or if you've got chicken scissors or kitchen scissors as well, you can use them. This is an alternative. These are metal scissors, but you would need scissors that are quite strong. Okay, so we're going to use the hacksaw. We're going to hold it and we're going to cut it down the middle. Okay, and how we do that is exactly the same way that we cut before, nice and soft, and we cut nice and flat. Boom, cut, made a hole. Alright, let's open this pipe, get our hacksaw out. Okay, boom. That's one cut. Now we have to do that again. And we can cut it either in half or in quarters. So if you cut it in half, you're going to cut it in half, and then you're going to cut it in half again so that it's in quarters. Okay, I'm going to jump straight to cutting it in quarters. Boom. Okay, and that's the piece we're going to use. That can go on the side. Awesome. So now we've got our piece of pipe. Going to get our heat gun again. Switch it on. Blow all the plastic off. Okay. And now we're going to heat up just the top bit so that it gets nice and soft so we can bend it out. And what this is going to do is create a little bit of a platform where the arrow can sit on. Okay, nice and soft. We can take our pliers again and we can use them to bend out our platform. And you want to make it that it's got a little bit of a lip, so that it goes up a bit, so that when your arrow is sitting on it, it holds it in place. Okay, like that. As I get colder, I use my hands, but that is what you want. Okay, so that it goes nice and up. Cool. So now that we've got that, by now the paint should have dried. Let's pack our tools away. The paint should have dried. We can get started. Okay, the paint is dry. Evenly all over the place. Nice. Maybe not evenly all over the place. But anyway, it is dry enough to work with. You can always leave it a bit longer. The longer you leave it, the better it is. But I'm going to start making the bow. Okay. So we're going to take our arrow rest. Now, if you're right-handed, you're going to hold your bow in your left hand and pull back with your right. If you're left-handed, you're going to hold your bow with your right hand and pull back with your left. Now, that's going to dictate where the arrow rest is going to go. So, if you're right-handed, when you're holding your bow in front of you, your arrow rest is going to go on the left-hand side if you're right-handed. Okay? And if you're left-handed, the arrow rest is going to go on the right-hand side. Okay? And we're going to end up taping it on with some of our masking tape. Okay? The angle or the height of the arrow rest must be at the height of your tape so that it's even with your tape. Cool. Hold it there. Grab some masking tape and we're going to tape it around our arrow rest. Doesn't have to be neat. This tape is going to be covered by our handle. Okay, tape it a bit. It's just to hold it in place. Okay, so your arrow rest is now on your bow and it is on the side of your bow, on the left or on the right hand side, depending on what hand you're going to shoot with. Cool. Now, in order to finish our arrow rest, we are going to put on some fake grass. Now, the reason why I use fake grass is because when you're shooting an arrow, arrows have fletches or veins. Okay, so this is our arrow, and these little feathers in the olden days, now they are silicone or plastic. These are called veins or fletches. Okay, and what happens is if we leave it that it is a solid arrow holder, it rips the fletches off like this and it breaks them. Okay, and then the arrow is not going to fly properly. So we put a piece of grass, a fake grass on top of it, and that fake grass holds the arrow nicely and softly so that the fletch glides and pushes the arrow off the bow. Okay, so that is what we are doing the grass for, to make sure we don't break our arrows. So we have got our piece of grass. This is quite a large piece. It's an offcut from a previous project. But if you bought our bow pack, you'll find a piece of grass cut already to the dimensions that you'd need it in your bow pack. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to use normal scissors to give this a good cut, and we're going to make sure that's the right size for our arrow rest. Using normal stationary scissors, we're going to just give it a cut, turn it upside down so it cuts nicely. We're going to go. We always cut it a little bit bigger than what we need it, because it can always be cut small. Throw that down there. Okay, now this piece of grass is going to be glued onto our arrow rest, like that. Okay, and now the arrow has a soft place to sit. Cool. Using a glue gun we're going to be doing this, but you can use super glue or contact adhesive or anything that you've got lying around at home, as long as it sticks to plastic. Okay, so that's how it's going to sit. Let's go ahead and plug in the glue gun. Okay, the glue gun needs some time to get hot, so we're going to leave this here, let it get hot. Okay, while we're letting the glue gun get hot, we're going to be cutting some leather. Now, I've chosen to go with the green bow and the purple leather, as I think it looks really cool. So I'm going to be cutting some of this fake leather, so it's pleather, it's plastic leather. I'm going to be cutting a nice strip of it, which we're then going to use to wrap around our handle. You can use string, you can use normal leather, you can use anything you like. Any material, doesn't have to be this leather, but if you've got our pack, you would have 3 or 4 pieces of different colors that you can choose from. Okay, I've cut mine nice and thick, probably a bit too thick. I'm going to taper it at the end here. So it goes thin. Okay, we're going to put that aside. Our glue gun should be warming up. It is. Okay, so we're going to put some glue onto our little arrow rest, and obviously run out of glue. Okay, now that I've got some more glue, we're going to put this onto our glue gun. We're going to put glue onto our arrow rest. So we glue a piece, we put some glue around the actual bow, and then we fill our arrow rest with glue. You don't want to put too much, because you're going to end up burning your fingers, but you also don't want to put too little. So we come in here and we stick our piece of grass down onto our piece of PVC to make the arrow rest. Make sure it's nice and tight in there. While it's still warm, it's quite easy to manipulate, which means it's quite easy to move. Boom. Okay. Now our glue is pretty much dry, so now that's not going to go anywhere. Now the reason why we chose to do this, I've chosen to do this first before adding the grip, is now when we add the grip, we can cover up all the excess grass. So to add the grip, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to start at the bottom and we're going to wrap it around. Okay, making sure that it is nice and tight. Okay, the important part of a grip is that it is extremely tight, because that is going to stop it from unraveling. Okay, we go all the way till we get to directly under the arrow grip, that it's pushing the arrow grip up, and then we also go on top of the arrow grip and we wrap it around like that. Okay, now we can use glue, but what I find works best is some insulation tape. Okay, so we've got our insulation tape, black insulation tape. We're going to peel some off and we're going to cover the end of our grip in some insulation tape to make sure it doesn't come out. Okay, the insulation tape works nicely because the black is really a nice color, but you can actually get any color insulation tape. Then they do green and blue and red and yellow, all sorts of different colored insulation tapes. I'll just choose black because it's quite a nice finish. Okay, there we go. If you want, you can go ahead and insulation tape the bottom as well. I'm going to, just for aesthetic purposes. Aesthetics means just for looks. Okay, go and give that a bash. And there we go. There's our bow. Okay, our handle's done, our arrow grip is done, and it's in there nicely. Now we're going to go ahead, remove the masking tape, and I'm going to show you how to string your bow, or how to make the string for your bow. That is our bow with our two white ends, purple handle, ready to be strung. Awesome. Okay. With stringing the bow in your pack, you would have a piece of nylon. Okay. It should be the right length. And how we're going to do it is we're going to start off making loops. So you make a loop, you tie a knot in that loop. Let me come to the camera and show you. Okay, so you got your piece of string, you make a loop, and you tie a knot into it. Wrap it around your finger, pull it through. Boom. Okay, there's my one loop. I want to do the same to the other side. So, going to make a loop. You're going to wrap it around the finger. You pull your finger out, so you got two little loops. Then your one loop goes into your other, and you pull it nice and tight. Okay, and there's our two loops. Now, these two loops are going to control the tension of the bow. Okay, we need to make sure that it's not too big. So these two loops are way too big, and the way you can see is if I hold the bow and I hold the string comes to the end of the bow. Okay, which means the string is not going to pull the bow back. So we need to make it quite a bit shorter. I'm going to start by making this one shorter and then see how that works. So we undo our knot. We make a bigger loop. Okay. Now we've got a much shorter string. I still think it's going to be too big, but we're going to give it a go. Cool. Come over here and I'm going to show you how to string a bow. Okay, so when we're stringing a bow, we're going to start off by putting one of the loops on to our end. We're going to hold it, and we're going to put our foot, which foot? We're going to put this foot through, so that our bow rests on our ankle and behind our knee. And we've got the string in our hand coming to the front, okay? And how we're going to do this is we're going to push forward with our foot, pull with our arm, and we're going to put the string onto our bow, like that. Perfect length, very happy with that. Okay, so once we've got our bow strung, as you can see in the video, nice and tight, we need to put an arrow rest in. Okay, an arrow knock, sorry, which is a little knot that goes on our string at the same level as our arrow rest. So it is going to go round about here. Okay, and how we're going to do this is we're going to get a second piece of string. I've decided to go for orange, and we are going to make a knot. Okay, so we hold our piece of string like this, and we make a loop. Okay, and we hold this loop. So now we've got a loop and we've got the piece of string making the loop. This we're going to send around both pieces and through the hole twice. You can maybe do 3 times if you got the string, and you're going to pull tight. Okay. Whoopsie. Pull this tight, pull this very tight. And there is our little knot. Okay. Now this knot can slide up and down the string, so it's not too important where it is now. Take scissors, cut the ends off of the orange string and not our black string. We don't want to cut our black string. Cut the ends off. Okay, and now it's got little fluffy spots. As you can see, we fluff them up a bit, and we take a lighter. Now with the lighter, we are going to heat up those fluffy parts of the orange string. Okay, and it melts them all in. And then we're going to squish it with the lighter so that it goes into the knot, like that. Okay, we're going to do the same with the other side. Be careful not to melt your black string, so make sure that the heat is always kept away from the black string and is only touching your orange string. Okay, boom. Now in order to make it that it is the right height, make sure it's nice and level. Okay, and that is going to tell us where to put the arrow. We put the arrow on top and we're going to hold it and shoot. And we're going to go and try out our awesome bow now. So we're ready to go. We have done everything we need to do. We have molded our plastic beautifully. You can see it's nice and it flexes nice and evenly. We have made our grooves in the top and the bottom. We have put our arrow rest on with our beautiful purple handle, and we have our arrow knock, which is going to hold our arrow nice and even, and it's ready to go. When we pull, pulls up nicely, and it's going to be quite a good bow. So let's go give it a go. Okay, so we are here with our bow, done, all made by hand. Got a nice aluminium arrow, and we're going to clip the arrow onto our bow. Now, in order to clip our arrows onto our bows, we can see this is going to go onto our string, and that holds our string and our arrow in place. Okay, so you can see it's holding the arrow nice and level. Put our 2 fingers and we wrap them. So we wrap them just around the tips and we hold it like that. Okay, and we curve our fingers so that it holds the string. When we pull back, we're going to aim at the target, and we're going to pull back with our elbow high into our face. And then all you need to do is line up the target with your arrow, and then you just let go. And it shoots. Okay, I'm going to show you some shots. Thank you guys for joining our online tutorials, and if you guys want to order any of our projects to be done at home or join us in our workshop, please go and check out our website lifeacademysa.com. You guys can make the bookings for the workshops or order your projects to be done at home from our website. Thanks guys.